I've always considered myself a pretty easygoing guy. My name is Jeff, and my wife, Sarah, and I had been together for over 5 years. We met in college, and honestly, I thought we had it all figured out. We had our ups and downs, sure, but who does? We just settled into a comfortable routine, or at least I thought we had. That was until the last week turned everything upside down. It started with the little things. Sarah began changing her hair. Now, I'm not one to dictate how she styles herself, but it felt like every other day she was going for a different look. One moment it was long and flowing, the next it was a pixie cut, and then suddenly it turned into this vibrant red that screamed for attention. I tried to be supportive, saying she looked great every time she walked out of the bathroom, but deep down, I felt a gnawing sensation in my gut. What was behind all these changes? Another sign was her sudden obsession with fitness. She'd always been active, but now she was hitting the gym twice a day. "I'm just trying to get in shape for summer," she would tell me, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I encouraged her, telling her how proud I was of her dedication. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She became more critical of herself and spent hours getting ready to go out, often leaving me home alone on weekends while she went out with friends. I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. It wasn't until I found the receipt in her purse that I really started to unravel. I grabbed her purse from the kitchen counter, looking for my phone charger when I stumbled across it. It was a receipt from a hotel downtown, a hotel I had never even heard of. My heart raced as I read the details, a 2-night stay with a booking under her name. I was stunned. The date was just a week ago when she had supposedly been at a friend's house. Confrontation was the next step, but how do you even start that conversation? My head was spinning, and I felt a mix of anger and betrayal. That evening she came home late and found me sitting at the table, the receipt spread out in front of me. I could feel the tension in the air as she walked in, her cheeks flushed from the night out. For a brief moment I thought about pretending everything was okay, but I couldn't. "Sarah," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "what's this?" I waved the receipt in front of her face, feeling my heart pounding as I watched her expression change from surprise to something resembling anger. "What the hell, Jeff? It's just a hotel, what's your problem?" She snapped, her tone laced with an edge I hadn't heard in a long time. "It's a problem because you didn't tell me you were going out of town, and you've been acting different. What the hell is going on?" I felt my frustration boil over as her defensive walls went up, leaving me feeling even more isolated. She huffed, crossing her arms. "I told you I was going away for a few days. I needed a break. You're so clingy sometimes." Clingy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was the one who had been left in the dark, and she was flipping the script on me like it was my fault. I pressed her, and it turned into a heated argument. I wanted the truth, but all I got were excuses. "Jeff, it's not what you think. It was just a getaway with some friends," she insisted, but the look in her eyes told a different story. I could see the guilt barely hidden beneath her bravado. As the confrontation unfolded, I felt my heart shatter into pieces. I was blindsided, and every word she said felt like a knife twisting deeper. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand answers, but I just sat there, feeling the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest. I left that night, needing space, not knowing where to go or what to do. I needed clarity, but all I could think was that I had lost my wife, the woman I thought I knew so well. The emotional impact crashed over me like waves, pulling me under. I felt anger, sadness, confusion, all swirling together into a storm inside me. This was only the beginning, and I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went. I had to figure out a plan, a way to deal with this. But for now, all I could do was sit in silence and contemplate the wreckage of my marriage. Would I find my way back to the surface, or was this the end? I spent that first night away from Sarah at a cheap motel across town. It felt surreal, lying on a lumpy mattress in a dimly lit room, staring at the ceiling as if it held the answers to all my questions. I replayed our argument over and over in my head, her words echoing in my mind. It was clear she was lying. I just needed to find out the truth behind her excuses. The sense of betrayal was suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was only scratching the surface of something far more sinister. The next day, I decided to take a leave of absence from work. I needed time to think, to process everything that was happening. I didn't want to go back to our home just yet. I needed distance. I spent the day driving around aimlessly, my thoughts racing. I couldn't help but obsess over the changes I had noticed in Sarah over the past few weeks. The hair, the new clothes, the sudden fitness obsession. It was all too much to ignore. As I drove past the gym she frequented, my gut told me to pull over. Maybe I could find some answers there. I parked and sat in my car watching the entrance. It was a regular gym, nothing fancy, and I hadn't thought twice about it before. But now every person who walked in felt like a suspect. Could Sarah be seeing someone there? The thought made my stomach churn. I waited, feeling ridiculous and paranoid, but I couldn't help it. After an hour of watching, I finally saw her walk out, looking radiant in her new workout gear. She was chatting with another woman, laughing, and for a moment it stung to see her so carefree. But then, just as I was about to drive off, I saw him, the man. He was tall, with dark hair and an easy smile. He walked up to her, leaned in, and kissed her on the cheek. My heart dropped. I didn't know who this guy was, but I knew instinctively that something was off. I followed them, keeping my distance, my heart racing with each turn they took. They ended up at a cafe a few blocks away, and I parked down the street, trying to steady my breathing. I couldn't believe I was spying on my wife, but there was no turning back now. As I watched them sit together, I felt like I was in a bad movie. Sarah leaned in closer, and they shared intimate laughter, fingers brushing against each other. I could hardly breathe as I tried to comprehend the scene unfolding before me. It felt like my entire world was collapsing. Did she have an affair with this guy? And for how long? After they finished their drinks, they hugged tightly before parting ways. I couldn't take it anymore. I was furious and heartbroken at the same time. I drove back home in a daze, my mind racing with possibilities. I needed to confront Sarah again, but this time I wanted to be armed with evidence. I had to know who this guy was and what was really going on. The next few days turned into a blur of surveillance. I enlisted the help of a friend, Mark, who had a knack for digging up information. I told him everything and asked if he could help me find out more about the guy I'd seen with Sarah. Mark agreed, his expression turning serious. He was a good friend who would do anything for me, and I was grateful to have him in my corner. While I waited for Mark to gather information, I played the waiting game. I returned home to Sarah, pretending everything was fine. It killed me to act normal, but I needed to know more before making a scene. I watched her closely, looking for any signs of guilt, but she was good at keeping her facade. She had even started planning a weekend getaway for us, claiming it was to reconnect after our recent rough patch. The irony of her words twisted the knife deeper. When Mark finally got back to me, I could barely focus. He told me that he'd done some digging into the guy's background. His name was Eric, and he had a history of dating married women. My stomach dropped. Mark described him as charming and smooth, the kind of guy who could easily sweep someone off their feet. As I listened, something inside me snapped. I didn't want to think about how easily Sarah could have fallen for him. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about how little I truly knew about my wife. I had trusted her completely, and now it felt like I was standing on quicksand, sinking deeper with each revelation. I knew then that I had to confront her again, but this time it had to be different. I couldn't just stand there and take her lies. I needed to lay it all out on the table, show her I knew what was really going on. But I also needed to prepare myself for the fallout. I could already feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, and I was terrified that if I didn't channel it correctly, I might lose myself completely in the chaos that was about to ensue. It was time to take control of my own narrative and demand the truth. I just had to be ready for whatever came next. The day of the confrontation arrived, and I felt like I was walking into battle. I spent the entire day preparing my thoughts, rehearsing what I wanted to say over and over in my mind. I had to keep reminding myself that I wasn't the one at fault here. Sarah had crossed a line that I never thought she would. My heart raced as I waited for her to come home from work, and I paced back and forth in our living room like a caged animal. When she finally walked through the door, I put on a calm facade, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. She greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I could smell the perfume she had switched to recently, this sweet floral scent that felt foreign and wrong. It was all part of the new Sarah, and I was done playing along. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, hanging her coat on the rack. "Can we talk?" I replied, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions crashing around in my head. "Sure, what's up?" she said, her brow furrowing in confusion. I gestured for her to sit down, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to unfold. "I need to know why you've been acting so different lately. I saw you with that guy Eric at the cafe the other day." Her eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment I thought I saw panic flicker across her face, but just as quickly as it appeared she composed herself, crossing her arms defiantly. "What are you talking about? You're being ridiculous." "Ridiculous? You think I'm being ridiculous?" I shot back, my frustration spilling over. "You've changed your hair, your clothes, and your entire attitude. You've been spending more time away from me, and I saw you hugging him, Sarah. Don't lie to me." She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "I won't let you talk your way out of this. I know what I saw, and I need you to tell me the truth. Are you cheating on me?" For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. I could see her weighing her options, trying to figure out her next move. Finally, she let out a haughty laugh as if my words were preposterous. "You're jumping to conclusions, Jeff. I could hug a friend without it meaning anything." "Is that what you're calling him, a friend?" I pressed, my voice tinged with disbelief. "You go to a hotel with your friend and come back acting like everything is normal. I thought we were better than this, Sarah." The facade she had been maintaining cracked slightly, and I could see that my words were starting to hit home. But instead of breaking down, she simply shook her head, her expression morphing into one of annoyance. "You're paranoid. Maybe I just needed some space. You're always on my case about something," she retorted, her voice rising defensively. "Space? Is that what you call it?" "Because it sounds an awful lot like cheating to me," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a mix of anger and sorrow wash over me, and I had to keep my emotions in check. I couldn't let her manipulate the situation or play the victim when she was the one betraying our marriage. "Fine, maybe I did go away with him," she snapped, finally breaking her silence. "But you weren't there for me, Jeff. You were too busy with your work and your own problems to notice I was struggling. I wanted to feel wanted again. Eric made me feel alive in a way you haven't in a long time." Her words were like daggers, each one cut deeper than the last, and I felt the weight of her betrayal break over me like a tidal wave. "So you think sleeping with someone else is the answer?" I asked, incredulous. "You think that's how you fix things?" "I didn't think you'd understand," she replied, her voice rising. "I needed someone who could give me the attention I was missing. You were so wrapped up in your own world that I felt invisible." Invisible? I felt the anger boiling inside me. "You chose to cheat, Sarah. You didn't even try to communicate with me about what you were feeling. You went behind my back and betrayed me." She looked away, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice softening, but I wasn't falling for her act anymore. "Not mean to hurt me? What does that even matter at this point?" I shot back, my heart racing with a mix of disbelief and pain. "You have broken my trust in a way that I don't think I can ever forgive. Maybe we can work through this," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "Work through this?" I repeated incredulously. "You think it's that simple? You go off to a hotel with another man and you expect me to just forgive and forget? I need time to think, Sarah, and I don't know if I want to keep doing this." I felt a mix of anger and sadness at the realization that everything we'd built together was crumbling before my eyes. I no longer recognized the woman sitting in front of me. The person I fell in love with was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't trust. "I never wanted it to end like this," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought we could fix it." I stood up, shaking my head. "You don't get to decide that, Sarah. You made your choices, and now it's time for me to make mine." With that, I walked away, leaving her sitting in the living room, her face a mask of confusion and regret. I could feel the tears welling in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I had to stay strong, even if it broke my heart. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. I needed to reclaim my life and figure out what I really wanted, even if it meant letting her go. After that confrontation, The reality of what was happening settled heavily on my chest. I spent the next few days in a fog, the adrenaline from the argument wearing off and leaving me feeling drained. I had chosen to leave the house again, spending my nights at the motel trying to gather my thoughts. The weight of betrayal lingered in every corner of my mind, and I felt lost in a maze of emotions I couldn't navigate. I reached out to Mark frequently, sharing my thoughts and feelings about the situation. He was a good friend, always ready to listen, and he helped me process the whirlwind of anger and sadness. "You need to consider what you really want, Jeff," he told me one evening over a beer. "You have to think about whether you can ever trust her again. What does your gut tell you?" My gut was in turmoil, torn between the love I still had for Sarah and the betrayal that felt like a knife in my back. I couldn't ignore the memories of our happy moments, the first time we met, our wedding day, the laughter we shared. But every time I closed my eyes, I also saw her with Eric, the way she had smiled at him, the intimacy they shared. It was like a film playing on repeat, and it made my stomach churn. After several sleepless nights, I made a decision. I would confront Sarah one last time. I needed closure, something to help me make sense of everything. I returned to the house, feeling a mix of dread and determination. I knew this conversation would not be easy, but I needed to hear her side of the story one last time. When I arrived, the house felt eerily quiet. I found her sitting on the couch, her expression a blend of anxiety and hope. "Hey," she said softly, looking up at me as if she'd been waiting for this moment. "Hey," I replied, taking a deep breath. I wanted to talk. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I sat down. Across from her, studying her face. She looked tired, worn out from the emotional toll of the past week. I could see the remnants of guilt painted across her features, but part of me wondered if it was genuine or just another act. "I've been thinking a lot since our last conversation," I started, my voice steady. "I still can't wrap my head around why you would choose to cheat instead of coming to me. We could have worked on things together." "I know," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I was stupid, Jeff. I thought I could handle it on my own. I didn't want to burden you with my problems. It felt easier to escape." "Escape?" I repeated incredulously. "You thought sleeping with another man was escaping. You made a choice that hurt us both. You didn't realize that by keeping it a secret you were pushing me further away." "I didn't think it through," she admitted, her voice breaking. I was confused, and I saw Eric as a way to feel better about myself. It was a mistake, a huge mistake. I felt a swell of emotion, a mix of anger and sorrow. "A mistake that could cost us everything, Sarah. I don't know how to go back to the way things were. You made your choice, and now I'm left here trying to pick up the pieces." She reached for my hand, and I instinctively pulled back. "Please," she begged. "I love you, Jeff. I want to fix this." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't ignore the reality of what had happened. "Love isn't enough when trust is broken," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I need time to think about what I want, what I deserve. You've shattered my trust, and I don't know if I can put it back together again." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand. Just know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I want to fight for us." That moment felt heavy with unspoken words. I could see the regret in her eyes, but I also felt the weight of my own uncertainty. "I need space to figure things out," I said, my heart aching. "I can't make any decisions right now. I don't want to rush into anything." "Okay," she said softly, her voice filled with resignation. "I'll give you that space. Just know that I'm here waiting for you." I stood up, feeling the gravity of the moment press down on me. "I just need some time to process everything," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. As I walked out of the house, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that this was a turning point for me. I had to take control of my own life, find a way to heal from the betrayal, and figure out what I truly wanted. In that moment, I realized that I couldn't allow myself to be defined by Sarah's choices. I had to reclaim my identity, and whether that meant working on our marriage or moving on, I was determined to find clarity. The path ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, one step at a time. The following weeks were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I moved through life in a haze, oscillating between anger, sadness, and fleeting moments of clarity. Day by day, I tried to reclaim my routine, but everything felt different now. The spots we used to frequent felt tainted by memories of Sarah's betrayal, and I began to realize I needed a fresh start, away from the ghosts of our past. Mark was a steady rock during this tumultuous time. He listened as I ranted and raved, helped me vent my frustrations, and offered a shoulder to lean on whenever I needed it. "You can't let her hold you hostage in this emotional turmoil, Jeff," he advised one afternoon while we shared beers on his porch. "You need to decide what's best for you, either move on or figure out if there's a future with her." It was sound advice, but it only served to heighten my internal struggle. I missed the Sarah I had fallen in love with, the one who made me laugh, the one who was my partner through thick and thin. But that woman felt like a distant memory, replaced by someone who had hurt me in ways I never thought possible. After one particularly difficult day, I made a decision. I would seek professional help. Therapy had always seemed like a taboo subject in my mind, but I needed guidance to process everything that had happened. I needed someone to help me sort through my feelings, someone who wasn't emotionally involved in the situation. I found a therapist who specialized in relationship issues and scheduled my first session. Walking into her office felt daunting, but as I sat in the comfortable chair, I was surprised at how quickly I began to open up. I shared everything: the infidelity, my feelings of betrayal, the confusion I was experiencing about my marriage, and the love I still felt for Sarah. My therapist, Dr. Collins, was compassionate and insightful. She encouraged me to explore my feelings honestly, asking probing questions that helped me confront my emotions head-on. "Trust has been broken," she said, leaning forward. "And while it's natural to feel anger and sadness, it's crucial to understand what you truly want moving forward." With every session, I began to untangle the knots in my heart. I realized that I wasn't just angry at Sarah. I was angry at myself for allowing this to happen, for not seeing the signs sooner, for putting my trust in someone who had betrayed it. I had to confront these feelings to find my way back to myself. Meanwhile, Sarah was still reaching out to me, trying to keep the lines of communication open. I had established a rule for myself: I wouldn't engage unless I was ready to talk about our relationship. I needed that time to think, to heal, and to understand what I wanted from my life. One evening, after a particularly enlightening session with Dr. Collins, I decided I was ready to meet with Sarah again. As I drove to the house, I felt my heart racing. I didn't know what I would say or how she would react, but I needed to see her face to face. When I arrived, Sarah was waiting for me, her expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. The air felt thick with unspoken words, and I could sense the tension building between us. "Hey," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "Hey," I replied, taking a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." "Good," she said, her eyes lighting up. "I want to hear what you have to say." I motioned for her to sit down, and I felt the weight of the moment settle around us. "I've been in therapy trying to process everything, and I want to be honest with you about where I stand." "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can forgive you for what happened. That's the truth," I began, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "You made a choice, and it hurt me deeply. It's not something I can just sweep under the rug." "I understand," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you, Jeff. I'm so sorry for what I did. I was selfish and stupid. I need to know if you're truly remorseful or just saying what you think I want to hear." I pressed, my voice steady. "I can't rebuild trust on empty promises." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she insisted. "I'll go to therapy too. I'll work on myself. I want to be better for you, for us." Her words echoed in my mind, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I also felt the looming question. Was it enough? I needed to protect my heart, but I also needed to be honest with myself about what I wanted. "Maybe it's too soon for us to think about reconciling," I said finally, "but I'm open to exploring the idea of rebuilding our relationship. However, it's going to take time and there are no guarantees. Just give me a chance," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I'll prove to you that I can change. I'll show you that I'm worth the effort." As I looked at her, I realized this was a pivotal moment. I could either close the door on our relationship for good or leave it slightly ajar, giving us both the opportunity to grow. It was a risk, but I decided to take it. Okay, Sarah, I'm willing to try, but it's going to be a long road. You need to understand that I won't forget what happened overnight. She nodded, relief washing over her as tears streamed down her cheeks. Thank you. I won't let you down again. I promise. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and I didn't know what the future held for us, but I was willing to open my heart just a little bit wider. It felt like a leap of faith, and as I left her house that night, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. The journey to rebuild wouldn't be quick, but perhaps it was a journey worth taking. The weeks following that pivotal conversation with Sarah were a mix of hope and skepticism. We both agreed to seek therapy, together and separately. I wanted to explore the roots of our issues, while Sarah needed to understand her actions and the underlying reasons for her infidelity. It was a rocky start, to say the least. Trust was an elusive concept, and every day felt like a balancing act between vulnerability and self-preservation. Therapy sessions were enlightening but often uncomfortable. We faced the hard truths about ourselves and our relationship. I learned that I had to communicate my needs and feelings more openly, while Sarah was beginning to recognize her patterns of seeking validation in unhealthy ways. Each session peeled back layers of hurt and confusion, forcing us to confront everything we had swept under the rug in the past. On the nights we didn't have sessions, we began to spend more time together, deliberately creating opportunities to connect. We'd go for walks in the park, share dinners at our favorite restaurants, and even revisit the places where we had made happy memories. It was a mixed bag. Some moments were filled with laughter, while others felt heavy with unspoken tension. I was hyper-aware of every word and gesture, analyzing them for signs of sincerity or deceit. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder. I felt a warmth spread through me, a flicker of the intimacy we had lost. I know rebuilding trust is a long process, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. But I want you to know I'm all in this time. I miss us. I miss us too, I replied, my heart aching with a mixture of hope and caution. But it takes time, and I need to see that you're committed to changing. She nodded, understanding etched across her features. That night we talked for hours, sharing our fears about the future while also expressing our desire to heal. I could see her determination and genuine remorse, and I began to believe that she was willing to put in the effort. However, the road was not without its bumps. There were moments of doubt, times when I caught myself replaying the hurtful memories. I began questioning whether I could truly forgive her. I had to remind myself that healing wasn't linear. It came in waves, and sometimes the tide would pull me back into darker waters. I sought support from Mark, who encouraged me to stay grounded in my feelings. You're doing the right thing by taking your time and setting boundaries, he reminded me during one of our conversations. Trust takes a long time to rebuild, and it's okay to feel conflicted. As the months went by, I could see subtle changes in Sarah. She became more open about her feelings, and the walls she had built around herself began to crumble. It was a slow process, but I noticed that she was genuinely committed to earning my trust back. We avoided the topics that would trigger defensiveness, focusing instead on building a new foundation. One day, during a walk in the park, Sarah broached the topic of our future. What do you see for us moving forward? She asked, looking up at me with those earnest eyes that once captivated me. I paused, feeling the weight of her question. I want to believe that we can find our way back to each other, I said, taking a deep breath. But it has to be a different relationship. We can't return to the way things were before. We need to build something new from the ashes. Sarah smiled softly, her expression filled with longing. I want that too. I'm committed to making this work, to becoming a better partner for you. As I looked into her eyes, I realized that while wounds may take time to heal, the potential for growth was just as powerful. We had both changed, and while some scars would remain, I believed that with hard work, we could transcend the hurt. The following weeks were difficult, but we kept making progress. We learned to communicate more effectively, to be honest, and to actively listen to each other. I took to journaling my thoughts and feelings, which helped me process my emotions better and articulate my needs when they arose. Time became our ally. The sting of betrayal began to fade, replaced by moments of laughter and shared experiences. I found myself starting to fall for Sarah again, but this time it felt different, more grounded, more real. As we approached our anniversary, I decided to plan a small, intimate dinner at home. I wanted to celebrate the journey we had taken together while acknowledging the work still ahead. I set the table with candles and flowers, and when Sarah walked in, I could see the surprise and delight in her eyes. "Happy anniversary," I said, my heart racing. "I know this year has been different, but I want to celebrate the commitment we're making to each other moving forward." Tears filled her eyes as she smiled. "Thank you, Jeff. I can't tell you how much this means to me." We shared a quiet, meaningful dinner filled with warmth and connection. As we raised our glasses for a toast, I felt an overwhelming sense of hope. We weren't out of the woods yet, but we were facing the future together, side by side, ready to embrace whatever came next. In that moment, I realized that while the road to recovery was still long, we were both willing to walk it together. I had learned that love is not just a feeling, it's a choice, a commitment, and sometimes it takes great courage to choose each other again. And as I looked into Sarah's eyes, I saw the potential for a brighter future. A future built on honesty, understanding, and the promise of growth. I couldn't predict where this journey would lead us, but I felt more determined than ever to discover it together, one step at a time.